So we spin the wheel, and you know what? She was telling me she was kind of dreading spinning the wheel again. Because at this point, we've kind of gotten most of the good movies out of the way, and it's kind of just garbage from this point onwards. We spun the wheel, and it landed on a very special film. Avatar, The Last Airbender. Ooh-wee. So, neither of us had watched this movie. The I want to say 10? Or 2009? M. Night Shyamalan live-action Last Airbender movie. Avatar, The Last Airbender. Avatar, The Last Transgender. The Last Gender Bender. Yeah, see, that's right up. That's off the dome. Neither of us had seen it before, but we were both familiar with the show. I watched a decent amount of it when I was a kid while it was airing. It's kind of hard when something's on TV to like catch it. I think it was pretty much over by the time. When did it run? When did it finish airing? ATLA air, not Atlanta. God damn it. Avatar air dates. Hey, there was a game that came out. For Avatar. Apparently that game sucks ass. That's unfortunate. It like just happened. 2005 to 2008. So yeah, I was like, it was just like barely before my time. And around that time, like let's just pin 2006, 2007. I was like 5 and 6 years old. No, wait, 2007, I was 4. Is that right? Yes. No, I wasn't 4. What the fuck am I talking about? I was 5. Big difference, okay? So it was like a little bit. It started airing when I was 3 and it ended when I was 6. So like a little early for me to be cognizant of things like release schedules and, new episode premieres. But I did catch it quite a bit as it was in syndication. I've seen a decent amount of the series. It's also structured in a way where, you can kind of just catch an episode here or there and have a general idea of like when it takes place. And it's not like the most confusing thing. It isn't like every episode is so inherently linked back to back that it would just be total nonsense if you skipped around a little bit. A lot of the show, from what I recall, is fairly episodic, with some overarching plot lines throughout the seasons, which is just something you had to do back when something was on network television, because that's just how syndication works. You can't guarantee, you can tell an overarching story, but you can't guarantee that, everyone's going to be watching it front to back like that, so you sort of have to write it in that way. Which is kind of something that doesn't really exist that much anymore, at least in the age of streaming services. In any event, I have a pretty decent memory of Avatar. I remember it being great, and I don't have to tell you to go watch it. It is a great show. I remember it being great. I watched it a little more when I think it was just on some reruns when I was in like middle school, and I watched it again. And it's a good show. Kat watched the whole thing, I want to say, in like a box. She got like a DVD box set of it as a gift, I think, when COVID happened. So she binged the whole series a couple years ago. She loves it. I think it's universally agreed upon to be like probably one of the best animated shows of all time, at the very least. Maybe one of the best like shows on network television, depending on who you ask. And it got this live action adaptation of about the first season. Now, what can I say about the live action Last Airbender that hasn't already been said about it? I don't know. This movie has been... So first of all, yeah, this movie it's really bad. But it's bad in kind of an interesting way. It's a film that fails to sell itself at literally every single point. It feels like a bullet point checklist of the first season of the show, but it's lacking absolutely everything that actually gave the show, like, some meat. It's all the bones and no meat. Like, it's a very hollow experience. I think one of the most shocking things that I remembered, funny enough, from like the Nostalgia Critic review. There's a scene where the first scene where Ozai shows up. Now, if you remember, or if you aren't familiar in the show, Ozai is the Fire Lord. He is the big overarching villain of the entire series. And the Fire Nation is always presented as this looming threat, this big military power that is capable of incredible destruction, and Ozai is the emperor. He is, and for the entire, I was like, isn't he kept in, like, don't they not even show him until like the third season? And like, yeah, Ozai in the show, I think you might like hear him, but you never see him. He's maybe like draped in shadow or something, but they hold off until like the third and final season of the show to actually reveal him, because he is supposed to be a big deal. He's supposed to be a huge deal. This is the fucking big bad. He is the Darth Sidious of the series. And the moment that he appears is like supposed to be a big drop. Like, shit is really serious. This is the most powerful dude ever, and Aang has to figure out how to overcome him, right? In this movie, he just kind of shows up, and it's just a guy. He's just kind of standing there, and then he's walking, and he's given absolutely zero fanfare. I remember pausing it to go like, Kat, this is Ozai. And she fucking, like, her jaw dropped. She was like, what the fuck? He's given absolutely zero weight. He feels like the least important guy in the world, which is the direct opposite of what he was in the show. And that's what I mean when there's just so many, the whole thing is so empty feeling. He should be getting, if you're going to show him, which you shouldn't in this movie, but if you're going to, he should be getting like an insane introduction. He should be getting Darth Vader walking down the hallway with the Imperial March kind of introduction. There should be some insane, intense lighting. There should be a mood. There should, things should change. You should know immediately that this guy's the big bad if you're going to introduce him right now. Because obviously, you don't make a movie called Book 1 and not expect to make books 2 and 3. And like, I have to wonder, what was the plan? What was the long-term plan, if there even was one, to adapt the rest of the series? Because you blow so much. You blew so much in this film. Specifically that. I don't know. Maybe there's not too much other stuff, but there's some weird jumbling around. They take the Blue Demon episode from the show, which I think happens in like season 2 or 3, like much later on, and they plop it down in here for some reason, because there's not enough actual interactions between Aang and Zuko as there was in the original, like, first season. So they're like, oh, we have to have them do something together. And it's like, I remember when that happened in the show, that was really cool. And it felt like a serious turning point in their relationship. And here it's just kind of like, well, we need them to, like, interact, because I think they met one time before this. Man. Oh yeah, the performances are fucking awful. So the casting's really bizarre to begin with. There's been a lot of weird race swapping going on, race changing. So in the original show, the Water Tribe was very much based off of like Inuits and such, kind of like, dark brown, sort of Asian looking, Inuit peoples, right? But here they're like, there's a couple that look sort of like that, but all the ones with spoken dialogue are white. Just straight up white people. Which is like weird. Are they adopted? Why are they like that? It's like weirdly whitewashed, and it's strange because not everyone in the movie is whitewashed. It's just like a consistent weird swap. Like, okay, the Fire Nation were always depicted as a let's say West Asian, maybe Chinese. I want to say they were more like Japanese. It was like a smorgasbord of various real-world Asian cultures. Like, I want to say that, like, the Earth Kingdom was more... No, the Earth Kingdom, they had, like, the geishas, didn't they? So they were, like, a little more Japanese, I think. And then the Fire Nation... Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm probably getting a little bit of this mixed up. Fire Nation was, like, Chinese. But here the Fire Nation is, like, South Asian? They look Indian. Which is really odd. And it's almost like it's a very intentional thing. Like, everyone is Indian looking. And M. Night Shyamalan is also Indian, obviously. So it's like, did he recast the villains to be his own race? As like, what is the psychology? What is going on behind that decision? What was he cooking? Anything else? I guess, like, the Earth Kingdom does look, I don't know, suitably, like, they look approximately right, from what I remember. Like, racially, it's just so bizarre. I think what were the air nomads? Were they always mixed? Because they're depicted as mixed, which I can at least believe. I'm fine with that. Yeah, but just a lot of weird race swapping that I don't understand, because it's so it's very intentional feeling. It's very, like, to make all of Fire Nation Indian. That's very intentional, but I can't read what the intention was. You know what it is? They're probably Pakistani. That's probably what it was. That was Shyamalan's way of stabbing at them. That was his jab. Now on to the acting. It's bad. So all of the main characters are very poor actors, like impressively poor actors, and in different ways. I was at one point reminded of Garth Marenghi's Dark Place by this. If you don't know, Dark Place is this... I've only seen, like, some clips from it, but I've seen enough to get the gist of it. Was this, I want to say, like, 90s BBC parody series. It was like a parody TV show on... It might have been like a mini-series or something like that. It was like a parody of medical dramas. Called Dark Place. And every one of the actors is like, all of the, like, the main characters, they're all terrible actors, but they're all terrible in different ways, which is actually a sign of good acting. Like, the actors who are playing them are actually on point. They're acting like bad actors, but they're capturing it in such a precise way. It's very impressive, actually. At one point, I was legitimately reminded of that. Like, the kid who plays Aang, holy shit. First, no one can get the pronunciation right on anything. They call it, like, the Avatar, and sometimes the Avatar, and sometimes the Avatar. Like, they go halfway. They call him Ong all the time, even though it's Aang. It feels like he didn't even watch the show. It feels like Shyamalan was given, like, literally, like, the spark notes of the show. And then, the kid who plays Ong is so bad. Sorry, Aang. Fuck me. I said it too. The kid who plays Aang is so bad. And I'm okay with saying that because he is an adult now. And god damn, he should not have been cast in this. I think Kat told me they cast him because he like could do martial arts, but like, man, if I could pick some shitty martial arts over being able to like deliver a line, I would have picked the latter any day of the week. Like, that's to be the priority. He reminded me of, like, go look up Dark Place, You and He Were Buddies. That's what he sounds like. That's what he sounds like to me. You and he were buddies, weren't you? Like, that's what the kid who plays Aang sounds like. The fucking, I think the one scene that encapsulates everything that's wrong with it is the kind of infamous one in the Earth Village, the Earth Kingdom village that's under subjugation, where it's filmed in like you could do like you could make an entire video on everything that's wrong with it. It's filmed in the flattest, most uninteresting way. The lighting sucks. It's one of the first times that I've been watching a movie and I thought, I'm looking at a set. Like, I'm just thinking of the actors on a set right now. It is failing to sell itself so hard. And not even in like you could see like that complete failure to suspend my disbelief. It's crazy that it happened with something where they're just like in a quarry. It's not even like the effects are really bad because they're in like a CG world or something. They're just in like a place, like a mountainside. Like, it's a real place. And I cannot buy it as being the place that it is. They got some tents up. All I have to believe is that this is the side of a mountain where some people have some tents set up. And they can't even do that. It's like the kid steps out, Aang steps out and he goes, "Stop doing this! The Earth Kingdom are a proud and powerful people!" Dude, I was saying, they should have got this kid. They should have got this kid. They should have got him to do the America Ferrerica speech from Barbie. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine, like, the whole Barbie movie, and then America Ferrerica's about to give her speech, and this kid fucking slides in, and he's like, being a woman, it's so hard. People tell me that I need to stand up for myself, but then you're bossy. Can't even do it, dude. It's so fucking ridiculous. And then it just, like, the scene, it just keeps going, and I could see what he's trying to do, or he's trying to have this one long take of this whole action this thing that just rolls into this action sequence, like this speech that rolls into this retaking of the prison camp. But then, like, you pan over, there's like 6 dudes, and they're like doing this fucking improv, like hip hop breakdancing, and they into this motion, and it results in like a single tiny rock being lifted off the ground, and then another guy has to come in to shoot the rock. The bending in this movie sucks ass. In the original, I remember, the bending was always very kinetic. It was very dance-like. Like, you could tell that it was based on this idea of the body being connected to the elements in nature. And you could see the way that characters would stance up and then move and shift their bodies, and they would gesture, and you could see the way that, like, the elements would work with them. When someone would bend fire, they would like collect it. They would do this motion like they were collecting, and then there was like this fluid push, they would send it out. When someone's bending like stones, they like plant their feet super hard into the ground, and like the stones shoot up, and you can feel like the dispersal of energy. in the way that the characters use their bending. It feels like they're one. You can see just visually how it's an art form. You don't even have to you can just show someone a clip of two people like doing bending at each other, element bending, and you can see the art form just in the way that they move. And in this, it's a piece of shit. Like, everyone does these gigantic over the top breakdance motions, and it results in like the least. If someone did that, what they were doing in the show, they would be doing some of the most like complex bending where you're like making I'm gonna summon some water and make like a prism and shoot this thing out, like the most complex thing ever that you would expect. Oh, you'd see like a master bender doing all this crazy shit. And in this, it's like, it makes a little fireball. There's a really bizarre thing where none of the firebenders can make fire for some reason. It's really weird. I guess, like, maybe Shyamalan thought it didn't make sense that the other bending styles could, like, that they couldn't just produce, like, waterbenders can't just produce water, say. So maybe he was trying to like bring it in line where like firebenders also have to like make they have to like bring their own fire, BYOF. But I think that like in the show that made it even more intimidating. It was like, oh, like they can just create this deadly power from nothing, and it matches the style of fire, in my opinion. Like, fire is not necessarily a natural thing. You don't go out into the world and see fire unless it started by something. Fire is I watched a video on this. Fire is not necessarily like energy or plasma like it's usually described as. Fire is more akin to it's like a waterfall. It's like a water versus a waterfall, for instance. Fire is a transitionary state. So it kind of makes more sense that, like, yeah, you don't go out and find fire in the world. They would produce it themselves. You could maybe even consider firebending to actually just be like the ability to accelerate energy and accelerate atoms, which is, what starting a fire actually does. Like, that's what they're actually bending. They're just bending the thing on like a very fine, precise level. If you were going to really read into it like scientifically, it's not really what the show's doing. It's more fantasy. But if you're going to read into it like that, that's what you could consider. And it's just kind of, I don't know, it feels like weird, and it's kind of missing the point of what was cool about firebending in the show. Anything else? Yeah, most of okay, so Aang is terrible. Like, the kid is really bad. There's a really funny shot again where they're talking. He's talking to Sokka and Katara, and for some reason, Shyamalan thought it would be a good idea to have the closest possible shot of his face. It's like the tightest close-up ever. Oh, a lot of the shots in this movie are very clearly set up to make it easy for the effects to be added in post. Like, we're going to lock the camera down, and any motion? Nope. We're going to do a digital zoom. A terrible looking digital zoom. Oh man, it's all over the movie. And by the end, they start mixing it with slow-mo, and it's so lame looking. The bending looks like shit. It doesn't make sense. The acting is shit. The guy who plays Sokka reminds me of Hayden Christensen in the prequels, but like without the parts of Hayden Christensen's performance that are like good. It's like a shitty Anakin, which is kind of crazy. Katara is like the least. Katara is like. The dynamic of the group was always that, like, Aang is like this kid with a bunch of responsibility, but he's like kind of, he's kind of a goofball and he's sort of silly. I want to see Aang's like the middle point, I guess, between Sokka and Katara, and Sokka's like the big goofball who eventually kind of has to like learn to grow up, and then Katara is kind of like she's the most responsible one. She's kind of like the mom of the group. She's the most serious, level-headed one, and for some reason that's translated in the movie as Katara has absolutely no emotion or character ever, and when she does, it's like the actress, it's like a corpse struggling to come to life. It's so sad. It's so sad to watch. So the dynamic of the group just like doesn't exist. Sokka is like, I don't even know what Sokka's not a goofball. No one's really a goofball. It's like all the charm of the original trio is completely lost. Like, imagine if they were going to do book 2 and Toph was there. Like, that wouldn't make any sense. Like, wasn't part of Toph's character, if I recall correctly, was that she kind of clashed with Sokka? A sucka? Kind of with the sucka? Because she's like kind of like a bit of a moody, kind of like she doesn't like people that much. I'm going off of very old memories, but like I remember that kind of being part of the character, and it would be like 4 of the same character. I remember everyone in the group had pretty defined personalities and roles that they ended up filling. Yeah, the guy who plays Zuko is fine. He's okay. And apparently he got some roles after this. And I can see that. It's not a terrible acting reel. It's actually not a bad performance. There's some really bad exposition where they're like, oh, Zuko, if you remember, he, like right in front of it, he was banished by the Fire Lord, his father, and he's gotta find the Avatar, or something, just some nonsense. Iroh is so weird. He looks like Liam Neeson. He looks like Indian Liam Neeson from The Phantom Menace. He's Qui-Gon Jindian. Very different take on Iroh. I want Iroh. I don't like the casting. It's weird because I feel like the performance itself is actually fine. The thing with Iroh is that he's like, Iroh is like the first look that you get into. Iroh is a very reassuring character in the show because the Fire Nation is the most obvious villain, like, group ever, you know? And Iroh's that one character who's immediately in the show from episode 1, who's kind of plants the seed that, like, there's a little bit of nuance in the world. It's like, oh, this show isn't going to be entirely black and white. And from what I remember, the show ends up being about how black and white morality is kind of like the unviability of it. And having Iroh, this very wise, actually quite sensitive character who is actually like a genuinely good person in many ways in the show from the beginning, and you can feel that from the beginning, is, I feel like, very integral to the character. And some of that is translated into the film. Some of that. I feel like the best Iroh stuff was always the parts where he was mentoring Zuko. He was serving as Zuko's father figure, and he was giving him wisdom that he wasn't ready to accept yet. And that was, like, always, to me, from what I remember of the show, the most interesting stuff with his character, is that he knows all the answers, but Zuko's not ready to accept them. And that's, like, an integral part of their dynamic. And there's a little bit of that in this, but it's too compressed. It's there might have been a way if you retooled it to have fit in the important beats, but there's scenes in this that I'm like, oh, this is an episode. This is like an episode of the show. Like early on when they go to like the air temple and Aang is like completely devastated by the fact that and everyone's gone and it's been 100 years, and it's like a critical blow to him. And I'm like, fuck, man, I really wish I just watched this as like an episode of a TV show. I wish it had just had some time to really linger and like have the build up, and then you know what's going to be there. You know what's going to happen. And then just to like go through that, to just have that whole emotional process with that character. I'm like, yeah, man, if it was reminding me of how good the show actually was. Oh yeah, the Eero casting. He's too tall. He doesn't look like Eero. I want like I feel like part of Eero's an important aspect. Like, character design is real. Like, it's a real thing, you know. Eero being a kind of short, rotund old man is sort of important. He's supposed to look disarming for a number of reasons. Number one is that, again, he's sort of this view into a different side of the Fire Nation that isn't just like evil foot soldiers. Two is that he's actually like super powerful. He's like a really powerful dude. And that's like a common trope to have, like, oh, the unintimidating looking old man, but actually he's like crazy strong or something like that. And he's just a little too like young and tall and thin, and he should have been a little more modest looking. That was the other thing, is that, you know, he always just kind of wore very simple robes. He's never really dressed in the show like a soldier or anything, because I think he's like retired. Zuko's technically not a member of the Fire Nation. He just gets like a little detail. Essentially, he gets this little detail of men who are shackled to him for his quest, and then Eero's just sort of there on retirement to help out his nephew. Yeah, the performance is not bad, but yeah, I just I wish the I kind of wish the casting was a little better. They get to the big water kingdom city. The Northern Water Tribe, I think is what they call it. I think it's what it is. We cheered for penis hair. For Dick Neris, as we called her. And, man, again, completely failing to sell things. There's a line of narration, which there was, like, never narration in the movie except for, like, the opening crawl, which I was like, oh, that's like a reference to the show opened with Katara narrating, like, I believe Aang will save us, or whatever. And then they bring in narration because Shyamalan doesn't know how else to communicate the fact that Sokka and the princess fall in love, which I'm pretty sure in the show had, like, multiple episodes. And you actually, like, really got some time to spend in this location with these characters. And Aang learning about water and actually learning from the masters water bending and the philosophy and all that. And all that is just rapid fire skimmed through, just shot through a pneumatic tube in this movie. And it's like, it just, like, it doesn't do, it's too fast. There's like the Netflix show coming out, and I don't think it's necessary. I don't think you need to make a live action thing. It's kind of annoying. Like, well, now it's legitimate. I don't think you have to do a live action thing, but at least it makes way more sense to do it as a series, an actual episodic series, and not a movie. Because a movie, it's just, the story does not lend itself conveniently for adaptation. I could see a world in where there's a good adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender, but who wrote that movie? Who was the writer? Okay, you're not telling me what the writer was, who the writer is. Oh my god. Avatar: The Last Air franchise. There's a podcast? What the fuck is the podcast? Avatar: Braving the Elements is a podcast where the voice of Zuko, Dante Bosco, and the voice of it's just an episodic review thing. Oh, okay. Alright, that's fine. That's cool. Where's the damn film? Last Airbender. 2010 film. Written by Shyamalan. Wow, sole writing credit. That's embarrassing. The film was widely panned by critics and fans of the animated series and has since been considered one of the worst films ever made and took in $319 million at the box office. You know what I want to do? I want to go read some IMDb trivia. It's one of the life's simple pleasures. Airbender movie. 2 out of 10. It's one of life's simple pleasures, is IMDb trivia. Did you know? Let's see. The creators of the show served as executive producers and were initially supportive of the film production. However, both of them ended up being very unsatisfied with the finished product. In a podcast interview from 2014, Konietzko revealed that A, we didn't want it to be done at all. Before anyone was attached, we didn't want it. And then B, if it was going to be done, we wanted to do it, but they weren't going to let us. C, when they attached Night, we just thought, well, this is what we've been dealt. We'll just offer help when it's asked of us, and if not, we'll stay out of the way. In the beginning, it was more positive, and we offered help, but then we had a big falling out. They even mentioned how they gave a lot of input that went nowhere as it all got pushed to the wayside. Huh. Interesting. The film was intended to be the first part of a trilogy, with the next 2 films being based on books 2 and 3. While the film ultimately made a modest profit at the box office, yada yada. Total of $280 million spent on one movie. Therefore, The Last Airbender did not gross enough to have Paramount greenlight the last 2 sequels. However, a new live-action remake, yada yada, the Netflix thing. In the original show, Sokka is a comic relief character. However, no comedy comes from Sokka in the movie, which garnered significant criticism. Dev Patel expressed dissatisfaction with the final film. Who was... Oh, is he Zuko? Yeah, he is. Yeah. Oh, hey. Randomly, we're going to jump back to Follow That Bird. There's a kid who shows up in Follow That Bird. There's a little girl, and what's her name? It's like one of her first appearances as an actress. And she oh my god, where is it? We were looking up her list of roles later, and we were like, holy shit. She's been in a lot of shit and a lot of stuff. It's this little... Where is she? I can just actually look up... Hang on. Voice of... Yeah. Allison Court. She shows up as like a little girl in Follow That Bird for a scene or 2 where Big Bird like spends a day with some farm kids. She went on to voice Lydia Dietz in the Beetlejuice animated series. She's the clown lady from The Big Comfy Couch, and she's also Claire Redfield in a couple different Resident Evil things. And she's also what else was she in? Some other wacky... Oh, she's Jubilee from X-Men the Animated Series. She is oh god, what's her name? Emily Elizabeth or something? She's Clifford the Big Red Dog's owner. All this random shit that I know her from. That's really funny. She's Megan from oh wait, never mind. I was thinking of something else. That's a different thing. Yeah. All this random shit. Lunette, that's the character's name. She's the clown girl. What the fuck was I talking about? Last Airbender? Oh yeah, IMDb trivia. Yada yada. Oh, there's a terrible sequel hook. There's a terrible sequel hook where Ozai's like, Oh, you must now go hunt down the Avatar Azula? Oops. Yeah, just an absolute failure of a movie. Like, literally every single thing about it completely misses the mark. Like, it's an impressively, fascinatingly bad movie.